Everybody get that. So we will call the meeting to order, and of course, as always, we start with the land acknowledgement, and we would like to begin by acknowledging the treaty territory of the Anishinaabe, which is defined within the Pre-Confederation Treaty known as the London Township Treaty of 1796. Throughout time, this region has also become home to the Haudenosaunee and the Attawandaron and Lenapehoik nations. And we will begin by looking for any disclosures of pecuniary interest, any conflicts of interest that we want to declare before we get started. Seeing none, we will look for completion and acceptance of the agenda. Do we have a mover? Moved by Gary, seconded by John. We'll call that to question. All those in favor? That carries. And moving on to approval of the board meeting minutes from our last meeting. And we will look for a mover for that. Moved by Adrian and seconded by Shelley. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor? And any opposed? That carries. We have no communications and no delegations or presentations this month, so we are going to move on to agenda item number 9, which is the consent items. And we will just give me a second here. I closed the wrong file. So we will move on to the consent agenda items, and we have an A and a B. These are staff reports versus the CEO report, and then we have the vacancy management report. So we will turn it over to Paul for the CEO's report.
Thank you, Chair. Through the chair, just some exciting updates. Actually, the LMCH has just paid off its last mortgage. So our last property was up that had a mortgage was Bella, which is in Strathroy. So in March we made the payment. CMHC confirmed last month that we are officially mortgage free. So that is exciting news. Sort of frees us up to sort of do whatever we need across the portfolio in collaboration with the city and the county. So that is a milestone for us. That we've been paying mortgages for over 50 years. So it's nice not to make that payment in May. Annual report is to the shareholders being finalized. Just the content is at its final draft, and now we're formatting the document. So we'll have that and share that with the board upon approval. I'm working with the chair on the message from the board on that. We're also excited to announce that Tuesday we'll be going live with our new IT system, actually officially Wednesday morning. So Tuesday we're shutting off our old system, and Wednesday morning we're turning on a new IT system. So that was the Yardi upgrade that was approved in November by the board. We are sort of just 6 months from that date where they go live on the first phase of that project. We do have some additional modules we're going to add to it, and we have something we call the Champions Table, which will be sort of a continuous improvement approach to managing that system to continue to leverage the modules that we have purchased but we haven't used in the past, just to keep finding opportunities to improve how we work. And, I think the other exciting news for us is the update. The new LMCH website has launched, thanks to Laura Lefebvre, our new communication specialist, picked that ball up in midair and landed it. There was a lot of work to do on content and some of the flow in there in the final stages that was unexpected. And we were pleased to announce that it went live on Wednesday. We've got posters going out to all our communities to share, the new maintenance request and where that is on the website, and just kind of make sure people are aware that they can do maintenance requests 24/7 and that they can share with us those issues on their time. And just COVID keeps impacting us as an organization. No major updates there. We're continuing to open communities, work with our partners, and try to normalize everything we can here while operating safely. So that's the CEO update.
Thank you for that, Paul. And I'll look to see if members of the board have any questions or comments to share.
Yeah, so like everyone else, I was really pleased to see the website. It's a huge improvement to the lack of website before. I'm really pleased to see that we have maintenance requests front and center on the website. That's probably the most important thing for tenants to have available to them. And then the community resources page was great to see. I do think that we have a few things that we could add to it. I do have a list of 3 resources. There's 2 counseling services that are geared to income. And then there's also Fancha's Oral Health Clinic that tenants can use to access dental hygiene cleanings and x-rays that are very low cost, like $25 for a cleaning sort of thing, $2 for an x-ray. So we do have the Schulich Dental School, which is Western's dental school, on there. So if we can add the other one as well, people can know about it. It literally just came online last year, so a lot of people don't even know it exists. So I'm going to put these in the chat, just the links to their websites, and hopefully we can get those added to the community resources page. That's all.
That's great, Anne-Marie. That's those extra resources I'm sure will be appreciated by folks. Do we have any other questions or comments? Mr. Morgan, go ahead.
I thought the content about the mortgage being paid off was very like that was excellent. Like that's like a long time coming, and I don't know, that's the kind of stuff that maybe we think about doing a release on and letting the public know, because that's I mean, there's lots of people who'd love to be in that situation. And I know we've got a lot of things we need to do. I know we've got a lot of expenses, but it seems like it's just one barrier that's been lifted from the many obligations we have. And it's a very good news story. So I thought it was an impressive, long time coming achievement. So that involved many boards, and many CEOs just diligently paying that thing down. So I don't know, I get excited when I wish I was in that situation. And I thought I'd mention that too.
Great. Thank you, Josh. And John.
Thank you, through the chair. Yeah, I was just going to echo what Mr. Morgan just said too about paying off the mortgage. I think, what we've seen now in the market is those days are behind us. I don't think anybody will be paying off mortgages in their lifetime these days, but maybe I'm a pessimist, but I don't know. But yeah, I was just kind of joking aside, I was just going to say, yeah, we should have a mortgage burning party, or not party, but a session of some sort, or maybe the staff should anyways, but anyways, that's it. So.
Great. Thanks, John. Anyone else? Well, if folks will indulge me to just make a couple of quick comments and a question from the chair. I concur. I think the end of mortgage is a great item, not just for the board, but I mean, I think it's a great community story. And I certainly am going to share that out and let people know through my social media channels. I did want to follow up on something that was mentioned in the written report, which is the staffing and the work continuing to fill the vacancies. And Paul, you and I have had a chance to talk about this a little bit offline, but how are we doing with filling the vacancies? Because I know that every time we've got a vacancy, that's a workload that has to be carried by other staff who have their own work to do. So I'm wondering if you could just provide us a little more insight on where we are with filling our vacancies.
Sure, thank you. There's a turnover is higher than we would saw post or pre-pandemic. So we were in an employment environment where a lot of people are getting offers and things like that. So what we're finding that we're sort of just maintaining when we add a staff person somewhere else in another part of the organization may go on leave, or they may leave for another position. So, you know, as we sort of shore up one area, and we're seeing this in managing our vacancies, we've really increased the number of maintenance repair staff that we have compared to what we had pre-pandemic. But then we have some vacancies, say in tenant placement, that slows down the renting of those units. So we're sort of, there is a compound impact. So there's a lot of conversation going on pretty much every week with the directors and the managers on how to rebalance the staff, reallocate some work. And, you know, the fortunate thing is we're finding that, you know, we're having success in a number of these competitions now. We're identifying candidates, and sort of, so some of them are moving quickly. So it is, we expect it to be an issue probably till the fall, so that we can sort of get through some of these competitions. You'll note, and we're really excited that 2 staff members changed roles within the organization. And that's great, but then it sort of, it creates a second competition that we need to run. So we're balancing all that out, and where we can bring in students or find other temporary options, we're doing that. We do have some staff that are really skilled in multiple areas and are happy to help out, and we're using those. And, you know, it is a balancing act, and we probably won't see the uptick in the actual number of staff hit us until the fall. But we're constantly doing interviews and working through this.
So just a quick follow-up to that. I know you're going to address the property management agreement with HTC a little bit later. But with taking that on, do we have enough of our tenant placement and maintenance staff to manage that extra building right now?
Bulk of that work is behind us on the tenant placement side, so that we don't really reflect all that work that they're doing in our vacancy report, because it's sort of reported a little differently. Operationalizing that building, we use a model of contracted cleaning services, as we do on our other sites, with maintenance repair staff going on a couple half days a week. So as we've increased our complement of maintenance repair staff, so there's no issue on that piece for us. So there's a little extra time for the property manager, and managing the relationship with HTC is sometimes, so that the frontline impact we would suggest is minimal, but from the management side, there's still a little bit of work that has to be done. It's not straining us, but it's definitely noticeable, because we're meeting, you know, an extra few hours a week on this issue. So we are conscious when we implemented it that we had a model that didn't impact the front line, and that was something that was important to us, and we did that.
Great. Does anyone else have any questions on the CEO's report before we move on to the vacancy management update? Okay, seeing none. I see Phil's iPhone is in the meeting. Paul, are you presenting this, or is Phil able to present this this month?
I can give the quick overview. Phil's iPhone, I think, is traveling down a highway. We continue to see a trend down in vacancies month over month in the total vacancies. That's the end of April. We had 148 units vacant, 23 were future lease, so we had 125 as our final vacancy number. Compare that to the end of January, which was 159. So we continue to see each month an incremental improvement in the number of the reduction in the vacant units. So our vacancy rate continues to incrementally go down. That sort of has 2 impacts. One is sort of, or driven by 2 things. One, the maintenance repair restoring units. That team continues to restore an average of 40 or more units a month, which is the target we've set for them. So that the number of units that are getting rent ready is now dropping. So we see that, you know, the units in active restoration is down to 79 at the end of the month versus 124 at the end of January. So they're working through their inventory. What you'll see on the active rental stock is we see that increasing because of that push that's going on in property services, and they have just a staffing capacity issue right now with a vacant position that is causing sort of a delay in their ability to work through this. And keeping in mind that as the property services works to meet their end of month target, they return a lot of units to the tenant services team the last 2 days of the month. So in order to hit their target, they sort of swamp the boat on tenant services. So there's a lot of those units they don't have a chance to even offer, let alone rent in the 1 or 2 days they have them. So that number is increasing in the total units that are vacant and available for rent. We expect that we'll continue to sort of see that increase maybe 1 more month, and then we should start to see that slowly decline as we sort of deal with some of the backlog issue. The team is working extremely hard. There's a lot of, you know, the future rented units that aren't really reflected in this number and things like that, that the number is a little lower. So we're talking about it. Andrea and her team are adjusting, and we expect to both reduce the number of vacant units that are vacant, as well as the age of the units in vacancy. And earlier we spoke about the fall of the age of those vacancies being where we normalized. So we're still on track for that, and still being conservative. So I'm really pleased with the effort coming out of property services, and tenant services is really doing the best they can with the resources they have. And to your point, Sean, on staffing, we're moving people around. They're really being flexible and responsive, but we do have we're one body short to staying on top of this.
Okay, we'll look to see if board members have any questions or comments for either Paul, or if Phil's able to unmute if there's something specific for him, although we want you to drive safe, Phil, so worry about staying on the road rather than answering us. Are there any questions or comments on the vacancy report? Seeing none, then I will look for a motion to receive both consent agenda items, the CEO report and the vacancy report. It's moved by Gary and seconded by Shelley, and we'll call a question on that. All those in favor? And any opposed? And that's carried. We have no in-camera matters on the agenda tonight, so we move on to reports and business. We've got 4 items in here, and these are our staff reports for us. We've got the audited financial statements, the HDC property services report, board committee membership, and update on the selection process for community directors. We'll start with the audited financial statements, and Diana, I think this is yours to present.
Absolutely. So past week, I had a chance to present this package to Finance Committee with elaborate discussion and presentation. So with brief understanding that it was approved to present to the board by Finance Committee. And if you'd like, I can go through the presentation. Alternatively, I can pass to the chair of the Finance Committee, or we can move on and invite the auditors. Please let me know which way you'd like to proceed.
Well, I am in the board's hands. Would you like to have Diana do the presentation, everyone? Or would you like to move on and hear from the auditors? What's our consensus on this? Shelley?
I thought Diana did an excellent job presenting it to the Finance Committee earlier this week. And so I wouldn't mind hearing the perspective from the auditors if that's agreeable to the rest of the group.
I see some nodding of heads there. So I think what we will do then is, Diana, if you'd like to invite the auditors to give us their perspective on this, and we will go from there.
Thank you. Melissa, can you please let them in? Thank you. I'd like to present to you Dania. She is a audit manager with KPMG, and she's now connecting to the meeting. Hi, Dania.
Hi.
I hope everything's going well. So this is our audit manager from KPMG, and the package was presented to the Finance Committee. And if you'd like to do a presentation to the board, please.
Sounds good. Thank you, Diana. I believe everyone has a copy of like the audit findings report at this point. Okay, perfect. So I will get started on that report on page 4. So the page 4 includes the executive summary, and as a reminder to everyone here at the board, like the communication that we have included here is the required communication by the Canadian Auditing Standards to you as a member of the board. And we also included here some information that we thought would be relevant to you in your governance role. Starting with the outstanding matters. We have substantially completed our audit other than obtaining the Hicks-Morley legal confirmation, completing our discussions with you today here at the board, obtaining the approval of the financial statements from the board, and obtaining the signed management representation letter. So all of these items outstanding are expected to be outstanding at this point, and like we would finalize upon completing them. So usually we would like be able to finalize, like, let's say on today's or like tomorrow's date, but we will just need to wait on receiving that legal confirmation, which we have followed up on. In terms of significant changes from the audit plan, there were none, and we have no concerns regarding going concern. And for significant risks, we did not find any findings for these items or any other matters, and there were no recorded audit misstatements to report, and no controls deficiencies to report. So I think we're still like on the first page. We're still on the executive summary, or page 4. Yes, here. And in terms of significant accounting policies and practices, there were no initial selections or changes during this year. On page 5, we just have here independence, and we'd like to confirm to you that we are independent of LMHC, and we have remained independent throughout the audit. On page 6 and 7, so on these 2 pages, we've included here our audit risks. The first risk being the projects from revenue recognition, which is rebutted as management's performance is not based on earnings. The second project, which is included on page 7, is the projects from management override of controls. This risk is not rebutted, and we have performed procedures to address it. And these risks are consistent with the prior year, and as a result of the procedures that we performed, no issues were identified. So the next few pages here, we have included a few areas of focus, and we've included them here due to them representing a significant balance on the financial statements. These areas are consistent with the prior year, other than the last area of focus included on page 11, which is the CMHC funding. So in terms of that, like we have reviewed the agreement, and we've discussed with management whether there are like financial reporting implications, and those would be coming for the upcoming years. So we have no findings at this point for any of the other areas of focus that we've included here. On page 12, we just confirmed to you that there were no identified misstatements that were corrected, nor any that remained uncorrected. On page 13, we just confirmed that we did not identify any significant deficiencies to report. And on page 14, we confirm that the form, content, and arrangement of the financial statements are adequate, and we have no concerns at this point regarding any future implementations. And the rest of the report essentially just includes some appendices. The first one just some other required communications. So I'm not going to do like a page flip of these, but essentially the required communications would be the auditor's report, which was attached to the draft financial statements, which I believe you all had a look at. The representation letter, which is included as Appendix 2 of this report. The terms of the engagement letter like you had from before, and we just obviously confirmed that we always have quality in mind, like while performing our audit. Essentially, this is like the main items like included here in the appendices, along with some live links included in the last appendices of like information we thought would be relevant to you in your governance roles, and you can just check them out. At this point, this concludes the presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
And we'll look around to the board. Are there any questions for Dania? Seeing a lot of shaking of heads. You did a great job, Dania, and obviously answered everybody's questions before they even had a chance to ask them.
That is perfect. I'm glad to hear.
Well, seeing none, I think we can let you go and get on with your evening. And I'll look to see as well if the board has any questions for Diana. And if not, I'll look for a motion to accept. Shelley and Anne Marie, you're seconding. And we will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that passes. Thank you for your time tonight, Dania. It's very appreciated.
Thank you so much. Have a great night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
So moving on, colleagues, our next item on the agenda is the staff report related to HDC Property Services, which I asked a question about earlier. Paul, you're up on this one if you want to give us a quick rundown.
Thank you, Chair. I provided a few updates for LMCH. Myself and Andrea probably provided updates to the board over the last 6 to 8 months on a request from HDC for us to provide property management services for some of the buildings they're building under the Rapid Housing Initiative funded by CMHC. This is part of an approach to ensure there's good collaboration between HDC, LMCH, and the City of London. And if the perspective of HDC is if they need to contract out some work that they're not able to do, they ideally and preferably like to have that happen with a related party like ourselves. So this conversation has taken place starting last summer and into the early fall. And it progressed to the point where we had an agreement in principle that we would provide these services. We in fact started providing property management services in February of 2022 and supported them on the transition from a construction site to an operational residential building and supported the rent up, I do believe around 50 units between February through April, and we still have a few units we're working with them on. So the relationship between HDC and LMCH on this property is that we are a vendor, or we're a service provider for them. We've put a property management service agreement in place that covers key areas of how we are going to operate together, and included things like performance requirements, things like terms and conditions of termination and extent of contract. The biggest hang-up for us in the contract negotiation was simply the issue of different indemnity liabilities and the insurance-related risk clauses in the agreement, as neither party had worked through them before. We both use the same risk management services at the city. We had to it took a little longer than usual, as we had to go and find another party to share, to manage that risk and get that contract done. So the contract is to the satisfaction of both LMCH and HDC. We both had legal advice. It is a new line of work for us. We do have to operate a little bit differently than we do when we own and operate a building. We're simply operating a building. So it's going to take a little bit to sort of make sure that we have good communication between the parties. There's lots of work happening on the ground to make sure that takes place. And this is one of up to 3 properties we're providing property management services for the buildings they're building. The second one is starting on Thompson Road with an expectation that it may be rent ready early 2023. So with the scalability of providing the services to 2 and 3 buildings, that lets us go to business a little bit differently, making sure we have the right management oversight and frontline staff on the building. So we're looking at what that model will look like, if we're going to stay with the same model we have for our operations, or whether a little tweak is needed depending on the needs of the clients and HDC themselves. So still lots of conversations happening. The contract is well balanced, and it's certainly something we as an organization can achieve for HDC.
Thank you, Paul. We'll look to the board for any questions or comments. Adrian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Paul, my question has to do with to gain a better understanding of the relationship of LMCH and HDC. So if LMCH is providing property management services, who actually owns the building and how is that funded, the construction of it funded?
So HDC maintains ownership of the building. My understanding of the funding of the building will be anecdotal. My understanding is through the CMHC Rapid Housing Initiative, funded through the National Housing Strategy. So the funding would have come through that, and whether there's a contribution from the City of London or other funds involved, I can't speak to that. We're coming in at the tail end, and they are the owner of the building, so that's the key point for us.
Okay, and I know my colleagues on County Council will be asking me, has HDC investigated or explored any opportunities outside of London in the county areas? Because we have plenty of opportunities for growth and development.
I wouldn't be able to answer that. My understanding is that HDC is an entity of the City of London, and not in the same context us as a housing provider, where they're our service manager and our shareholder. I do believe they're just the shareholder. So their service mandate may be restricted to the City of London. I'm happy to set up a conversation for you to speak with HDC on maybe how the county could start sort of exploring the options for development, because it is quite complicated. Those conversations are a good start to those, and I can make those connections.
I would really appreciate, Paul. That'd be great. Thank you.
Well, and I'll just comment quickly as well, Adrian. Well, actually, since I'm in the chair and since Deputy Mayor Morgan raised his hand, we'll go to him first.
Yeah, we're probably going to say the same thing, and that's HDC has been council's authorized folding HDC back into the city. It was always those housing operations were always part of the city, and then a separate corporation was created created. We did a review of that corporation, and we've provided the authorization to wind it down and roll it back into the City of London. So there's certainly, Archer, opportunities for us to support the county if they want to establish a similar entity and talk to them about the pros and cons. But we've determined as a council that it's to our benefit to roll those operations back into the City of London, because we're the sole shareholder, and there's no service obligations outside the City of London. There's no external obligations from that perspective on it. So I think that's probably what Sean was going to say.
Okay, well, I'm a little bit confused then, because my understanding in discussions with some of the city staff that a portion of what the county's contributions are to LMCH, it also goes to HDC, because we had that discussion with I think the housing manager some time ago. So that's why I asked the question.
We can certainly follow up on that for you, Adrian. My understanding is consistent with Josh's, that HDC was solely an entity of the city, but if there's contributions coming in, I think there's a discussion certainly to be had there. And I'm sure that out in the county, you've probably got some locations in mind as well. I know while it's not the baseline locations coming online right now, we at the city have a couple of surplus school lands that we've acquired because of closures that are going to be working through HDC and getting some rapid housing initiative funding through there too. So I suspect you're probably in the same position. There's probably some land that the county either has or has the opportunity to acquire that would be suitable. So we can certainly connect with you one-on-one offline and advance that conversation and loop Paul in as well, so that he can help facilitate there.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Any other questions for Paul on this item? John?
I thank you, through the chair. With this management fee that we're getting for these units, will we be tracking the costs associated with maintaining this building separately from? Will we be able to, at the end of the year, be able to find out how much we're spending on this unit compared to what the management fees we'll be getting, just so we could see if that we're keep like the $29,000 is enough to maintain this building or not?
Yes, through the chair, we have set up this property as a separate entity and separate banking information. So in our property management system, we have that ability. So we'll be tracking it through that way separately. And we'll be tracking not only the management fee, but there's also the operating costs that flow through, and some of our actual expenses that we have as an organization will be part of the operating costs for the site. So there's a little bit both on a couple of different buckets we're tipping into, but we'll be able to report back on how we're doing against the budget, and that'll be part of the conversations with HDC on an ongoing basis to sort of see if the management fees are sufficient, see if the operating costs are sufficient, because they're based on consultants' advice type of thing. So that every building, the reality is usually a little different on utilities and those types of things as they open up. So we can report back at the end of this calendar. We'll know how we did operationally and on this site, and then we can continue. We'll have to continue to monitor it, because the objective is to make sure that we're whole on this project. So if we need to adjust the budget, we need to have that conversation with HDC, and if we need to adjust our approach to managing it to live within the budget, we need to do that. So that's part of the ongoing oversight of this.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, John. Any other questions for Paul on this item? Seeing none, then I'll look for a mover and a seconder to receive this report. Moved by Tammy and seconded by John. We'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. And that moves us on to the next item in this section of the agenda. That's the staff report on the board committee memberships. And Paul, you get to speak a lot tonight. This one's on you too.
And I will do this short and sweet. Thank you, Chair. This is just a reminder that everybody had at the top of their file on the board committee terms of reference that were approved in August of 2021, and just some general oversight about membership. And I think there's some things in here that sort of remind the board on who can attend a meeting and who's a voting member. Quorum is set at 3 members. And so the chair can attend any committee meeting, as can any other director. So we'll have to work with the board on how we communicate these committee meetings so that you can monitor the agendas, and if there's items that you want to attend on, those types of things. So we want to bring a healthy culture where everybody's able to have fulsome discussions on these items. So this is just sort of a reminder on the terms of reference, a reminder that we can all attend all committee meetings. And we have just a reminder of where people have selected their membership is the final appendix of this report, with a note that with the expiring terms of Directors Anderson and Milson, that there's going to be some vacancies on a couple of committees, and we need to make sure that those that we recruit to the board have those competencies and are interested in sitting and meeting those obligations on those committees. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions or comments on this item? And we don't have to think about filling those vacancies tonight. We're not letting Ms. Anderson or Mr. Milson go quite yet, but we will have to think about anyone wanting to step up and perhaps move around. But hopefully we can recruit new directors with the skill sets that will slot them into those vacancies quite nicely. So seeing no questions or comments, I'll just ask for a motion to receive this report. So that's moved by Adrian and seconded by John. And we'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. And that brings us to our final item in this section, which is an update on the selection process for the community directors positions. And we'll invite Paul to start, and then Anne-Marie, if you want to comment as well as the chair for this subcommittee, we'll do that. But Paul, since your name's on the agenda, we're going to tag you first on this.
Thank you, Chair. At our last meeting of the board, we struck a subcommittee of members to sit to select community directors for the LMCH board. We had an initial opening meeting at the end of that board meeting in April, and then shared the information on the applicants and met up early the next week to discuss the process and do an initial assessment of the applicants. Through this process, it was identified by members of the subcommittee that we did not have a large number of applicants, and looking at the skills and attributes in the attached city bylaw, there weren't a lot of candidates that appeared to have the knowledge requirements that we are looking for the board, specifically the legal and financial backgrounds that we will be losing with the retirement of Director Henderson and Nelson. So the request of the committee was that we engage with the city clerk's office to determine how we would be able to open up the application process on a time-limited basis to specifically recruit for members with those attributes that we're losing. Through those conversations, it was determined that the best way to do that was to make official request through the city clerk to the SPPC committee at the City of London, requesting that it be opened up so that there's a lot of transparency in the process. And this report is requesting the board's approval to make such a recommendation. And the other noted addition to this report is to delegate the authority to the subcommittee to make recommendations on the new community directors. Just looking at the timeline and the timeliness of replacing the directors, I think it's important that the subcommittee have that authority. So if the timing doesn't work with the board schedule, we can get those recommendations to the city in line with city council meetings that are scheduled.
Thank you, Paul. I think that that's a really key point at the end that you raised there, was delegating the authority to the subcommittee, because as we move into the summer months, the council schedule stretches itself out a little more. We meet a little less frequently, and that could create some challenges in filling those vacancies in a timely manner that align with our board meeting schedules too. So, and Anne Marie, I know you got muted and you chaired our subcommittee meeting. So did you want to add anything to Paul's report?
Just echoing what Paul said, we didn't actually have that many applicants in the first place. There were only 11 people, and most of the people in the pool were from previous applications, and none of them really contained any of the skills that we were looking for. And we did discuss casting a wider net with regards to meeting our own connections and encouraging people that we know with the skill sets to apply, and using social media to cast a wider net as well. So that's pretty much it. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Anne Marie. Look to colleagues to see if there's any questions or comments from the board on this item. I see none. So just before I ask for a motion to receive, I'll just echo what Anne Marie said. I think it's going to be really important for all of us to use our own networks to cast that net a little wider. I know I've talked to a couple of individuals already who have a legal background, and there's some interest there. Once the application process is open again, I'll share the links with them. And I think that, Melissa, if we can, once we have those links, if we can share those out to all the board members so that we can all reach out to our networks, that would be greatly appreciated. And I will look for a motion to receive. Moved by Anne Marie and seconded by Shelley. We'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? I see none. So that brings us just to item 12, which is new business and inquiries. Does anyone have any new business that they wish to raise this evening? Going once, going twice, going 3 times, and I see no new business or inquiries. So the last item on the agenda is look for a motion to adjourn. Moved by John. Wow, that was lightning fast, John. And seconded by Anne Marie. And we'll just call the question. All those in favor? And surprisingly, that's carried unanimously. Thank you, everybody, for your time tonight. Much appreciated. I hope you all have a great long weekend, and we'll see you again next month, or as need arises to call folks together in between.
Great, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Enjoy your long weekend.